Welcome to Creative Brews. I'm Kristen, and this is your weekly dose of creativity, where photography, design, and life come together. So, grab your favorite drink, and let's talk about what's brewing. Good morning! So, it is literally 5 o'clock in the morning. This will be, I think, the first time I've woke up kind of super early to do an episode like this because usually, I wake up, do my morning routine and all that other stuff, and I usually try to make an episode probably around I don't know, it just depends on when my son takes his first nap. So that's basically what I've been doing. This morning I have woke up before him, actually, and figured, you know what? Why not do an episode, right? So today's episode, of course, is not really going to be a visual one. You all know that I sometimes have a not visual episode. So this one today is going to be that. So I've wanted to talk about some branding and, flip it over to the design. Ooh. The design side of things. I just collided design and side together. That is what you just experienced. I collided those two words together. So, so I wanted to talk about this, like a design topic, just because I have gotten a lot of inquiries. I guess you could say a lot. I've gotten some inquiry about the business side of things. I've gotten quite a bit of feedback for actually each topic. So I figured I would kind of touch on the design side of things and kind of rope it into some business things. So I definitely got some inquiry about, how did you come up with your branding and, the website and just stuff like that, like color palette and things. So I figured it would be fitting to start with sort of some branding details first, and then I don't know that I'll go into too much depth about my personal branding in this episode. I do want to eventually touch on that because I do plan on having a blog post about basically how I came up with my branding and how, maybe some tips and tricks on how you could come up with your branding if you are thinking about, maybe you're a business owner, maybe you're in the design world, so maybe you're doing logos and branding. So I think it would help not just being a business owner, I think it would help really anyone, if that makes any sense. So, yes, it's early in the morning. Good morning. I have coffee. You best believe I have coffee. and it's in my mom daily routine mug. So, yes, let's go ahead and get into it. So, basically, as I take a sip, I thought it would be pretty fitting to talk about basically aligned branding, what that means, and all that. So you all know me. I basically, have down some bullet points and a few different topics and things like that. So we'll kind of go over the intro. What does aligned branding mean? Signs your branding is out of alignment. These are kind of the areas that I'll probably talk about. And again, if you all ever have any questions or want to know more, just let me know and I'll dive deeper into, whatever it is. So, what aligned branding actually means, strategy and tips for creating an aligned brand. So, I wrote down woo woo just because, I put it in parentheses, just because. Well, we'll talk about it later. I don't want to talk about it now and then lead into that topic because these are basically all little topics, and then I've got a few bullet points underneath. Yeah, and then basically wrap it up with you can redesign your identity anytime you're branding your identity. And stuff like that. So I'm going to skip down to the third topic here because I thought about this after I wrote down a few things and I was like, well, someone who is listening or sort of watching, maybe they don't know what aligned branding really means, right? So what it actually means for me is okay. So, trying to think of the best way to explain this. So, I guess the best way I can explain it is lately I've been really leaning into the spiritual side of things. So, to me, basically, aligned branding is aligned with who you are as a person. Does it feel right? I believe I mentioned when I very, very, very first started this podcast, I think maybe it was the second or third episode that I had filmed or done. And I said something about this year is, I really need to go back and find it and just watch it to see what I actually said. But it was something about the time is now or something like that, right? So that's really been my year, my 2025 in a nutshell. The time is now. And it really, definitely began earlier this year, which, is when I started this podcast, basically. So, lately, I've really, like I said, been leaning into the spiritual side, really listening to my intuition and, kind of diving deep into that. And honestly, basically letting yourself lead yourself, if that makes any sense. Because, your intuition is leading you to, I believe that your intuition, if you lean and listen to, everybody wants to say, well, listen to your body or whatever that saying is. I've been listening to more of my intuition, trying to lean into that, doing what feels right. And I guess that's probably about it. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about the spiritual and the mental side of things just because that's not really what this episode is solely about, but it sort of is, spiritual and stuff like that. So when I started the business side of things, right? Like I said, I have been doing this year, I have been doing a lot of what feels right. What is the something about grow with the flow or flow with the grow? I can't remember what that quote is. It's early in the morning. Okay. I haven't fully woke up yet. So this is basically me waking up, coming down, getting a coffee, and I'm like, you know what? Let's do an episode. And this one was on my list, and so I figured let's just do this one. Cause I've talked about spiritual things lately. I've talked about life, and I think I've talked about some photography things. So yes, so basically, when I started the business side of things, I really wanted to create my branding and the color palette to kind of go hand in hand, of course, and do what I thought not only looked aesthetically pleasing to your eyes, but something different, of course, and something that, kind of feels like me, since, my business is called KB Creative NC. I really wanted it to be KB Creative, but that was already taken. But that's okay, because, anyways, a different story for a different time, right? But I really wanted to create something that was aligned with me, and, not only felt right, but I don't know, felt good, all those things. So that's sort of what I'm talking about here is aligned branding and what that actually means. So visuals that reflect your energy, your values, and your voice at this particular time in your life, right? So your brand, might not stay. I think my color palette is sort of like neutrals, you could say. The key color in my brand is like that dusty rose pink color. I really like that color, and I really love lavender. So I was really torn between, those two. But that's not to say that in the future I might do sort of a rebrand or revival, if that's what you want to call it. So I think you can kind of see where I'm going here. Like, I'm kind of mixing the spiritual side that I've been leaning into along with what I've been designing. So my branding, what I've been talking about. And here soon, I'm going to be probably talking about the website. My website, not the website, but my website. And because at the moment, at this current time, I'm actually going through a bit of not a redesign. It's not that big of a change. It's just a few things are changing on my website. So I'm switching some things around. I'm kind of getting rid of some things. And then just kind of reevaluating the flow of my website. Just because recently I sat down and added a blog to my website. This is what really started it. So, and I'm kind of going off subject for a moment, but what really started my website reflow is what I'm going to call it, was that I added a blog and I got rid of a section that I had on my website. Not to get rid of it completely, but I did delete the tab off of there. It was called podcast because what I wanted to do is basically with every future podcast episode, I might go back and upload to my website some old episodes that I've done, recently, maybe in the recent future. I'm not going to go back and try to repost all of the podcast episodes that I have uploaded because I think that'd be kind of a lot. Plus, I mean, because right now I think this is episode, 25? So I think that would just be kind of crazy to put on yourself. So yeah, I'm going to say future episodes would have a corresponding blog post. So I thought about that. I haven't fully decided yet. I'm still doing, like I said, the website reflow. So yeah, just trying to make my website more friendly and less confusing, because I was talking to my friend and I was like, I was trying to make my website very what would you call that? Not flashy, but sophisticated and polished. But sometimes that can lead to confusion, especially in the website and the digital space side of things. So yeah, aesthetics doesn't mean authentic. That's that's a good one. There needs to be meaning behind the design. So that's the reason why I don't know if I think it's been pretty noticeable, the switch, especially on my Instagram, with what I've been designing. I've really been, like I said, leaning into what feels right. And I don't know, it's been pretty refreshing, to be honest. Your brand should feel like your future self, not your past self, which is so true because, number one, people want to see fresh ideas, right? Anyway, so especially if you're designing a brand, whether that be for your own business or someone else's business, or, a podcast logo, stuff like that. Like anything that involves logos and stuff like that. If someone needs a logo, then that could easily lead into, and probably will lead into, your branding. What does the branding look like? Is it bubbly? Like, what's the feeling of the brand? Is it, modern and tech, very clean and sharp? You know what I mean? Those sort of things is to think about, basically. So let's move into signs your branding is out of alignment. So things like, if you look at, so what I like to do is do what I'm going through at the moment with my website and my Instagram, all the socials basically that are supposed to represent you, especially as a business owner or someone who is even in the design world. If you're in the design world in any shape or form, I think you should constantly evaluate your work, because then you can see, okay, well, I need to work on this. I need to work on that. Maybe, you need to sit down and learn some new things or some new techniques. Things like that. Like, if you look at your website, your Instagram, your Facebook page, whatever it is that that represents you as, especially as a brand. And if you look at it and say, that doesn't represent me anymore, or my website is confusing, or, that's kind of unreadable or unlegible, or, those colors don't really go together anymore. Those are some signs that your branding is out of alignment. As if you've had some kind of shift or change, maybe spiritually, mentally, or creatively. Like, if you've had a spiritual awakening, or, you grow as a person, right? So every so often you'll notice, even with the clothes that you wear, you no longer like certain things, or maybe you just bought a couple items because they were trendy. So it's kind of very similar here, is I think the best way to explain that. Or if you have some visuals that feel quote unquote cute but not connected, maybe you just designed something like a logo or a brand, or maybe you took a certain style photo because, again, it was trendy, or maybe you designed that logo because it was on trend. So, important key thing here is, or to note, is instead of designing for, trends or trendy designs, sometimes you can rope in like a trend with your aligned branding. But a lot of times, if you're kind of in that mindset of, okay, well, I'm gonna, this person wants this logo and they want it trendy or whatever the case is, a lot of times it's not gonna age well, basically. So, yeah. Or, maybe you've outgrown your ideal client. Things like that. Those are some signs that your brand is out of alignment. So, before I go to the next topic, I'm trying to make this too long, but I probably just doomed myself for saying that. Basically, what I have personally been doing is mixing the spiritual side, which I've been leaning into more because, it feels right. I did it here and there earlier this year, and I don't know, it just hasn't steered me wrong. So that really told me, okay, let's lean into it more because, you get answers and you get, just clarity and stuff like that. So, yeah, so I leaned into that. And when I was designing my brand and my website, I really had that in mind. Does this feel aligned with me and who I am at this current particular time in my life? Because, newsflash here, you are, and it is okay to outgrow yourself. It's okay to outgrow your brand and all of that. I would say it's almost like, your taste buds in a way. They say every 7 years your taste buds change. You no longer liked, I don't know, a particular food or a taste of a particular food or drink or whatever. And now all of a sudden you like something new that you're like, I didn't really like that before, but now I really like that. So, similar case here. You are allowed to outgrow, things in your life, whether it be a job, whether it be, whatever it is. It could be a thing. It could be, your brand here, or it could be a job, like I said. It could be anything. We're always evolving, we're always growing, and that's mainly whenever I made this podcast, that's mainly the main topic here that I, wanted to, I guess, put out there. Is that what I'm trying to say? I kind of feel like now I'm word vomiting. So, anyways, yeah, just like, you're allowed to outgrow things. And as you grow, your brand grows with you, so that's how it should go anyway. Unless you completely outgrow your brand, you no longer identify with that, it doesn't resonate with you. So in those cases, you're either going to probably go in a different direction, or maybe, mentally, creatively, geez, and all of those, you'll eventually go in a different direction. So, yes, some things to think about here. This is I guess, the woo-woo side of things. So I don't really talk about, like, woo-woo things. And some people listening might not know what I'm talking about. But if you're in the spiritual world side of the internet, or, whatever it is, if you're on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, I don't know. That's why I said woo-woo, because these are more like prompts to kind of just think about. You don't have to answer them. You can if you want to. But basically, two things. Who am I becoming is what I think is important to ask yourself. And what's the energy I want people to feel from my presence? So those are the two like little homework side questions just to think about. Whether you journal or not, just some tidbits to think about. So visuals to revisit, and again, some things to just continually think about as you're designing or as maybe you're coming up with your own branding is your colors, fonts, textures, if any, imagery, the tone of voice, just things like that. And look, like I said, we're always growing and always evolving, or we should be. You should always strive to better yourself for yourself, not because, oh, well, my friend is doing this or they're doing that, so let me force it. Like I said, I think in a previous episode not that long ago, you can't force things. What's going to work for you is going to work and it's going to feel right. And if you're forcing things, keyword forcing, right? You can't force a square to go into a circle or vice versa, right? So same thing here. You can try to force it all you want to, but it's not going to feel right. It's not going to work for you. You're not going to get clients. You're not going to progress. You're not going to grow. You know what I mean? So it just is a trickle down effect. So I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Don't be afraid of soft rebrands. You don't have to, if you're just changing a color or something that is big to you but is small to others or is small in the grand scheme of things, you don't necessarily have to shout to the world, hey, I'm doing a soft rebrand, this is what I'm doing. No, you don't need someone to tell you what you want to do. Does that make sense? Perks of being up early in the morning, right? There's a particular word I'm trying to remember. I think what I was trying to say in a roundabout way, but it was going to sound better, is that you don't need the approval of others. There you go. That's what I was trying to say. So you don't need someone to give you the okay to do a soft rebrand or a whole completely rebrand. Like that saying, no one's going to come and do it for you. So just take the initiative, It's your branding, especially if it's your business that you're wanting to rebrand. If it's a client that maybe you've been taking care of, maybe there's, a work relationship, stuff like that. And you're like, your logo, you've been using it for X amount of years. So we could do a rebrand, So that is a valid, meeting. That would be more of like, a meeting topic to talk about, especially if it's been X amount of years and maybe your business has been out in the world for a while. It's good to revisit the tone of voice and your branding and, the colors, aesthetics, your website. All of these things that you're putting out into the world that represent you, it's always, always, always a good thing to continually look at and say, I could have done that better, so let's do that now. Right? So that's what this whole topic is about. And I know it might sound like a duh, but a lot of people and some people don't know about these things. They don't think about these things because they think, well, I've designed or I paid someone, a professional to do my website, so it's done. So it should work for me. And just like anything in life, no, you gotta continually, work on it and make it better and grow it. What does that sound like? It sounds like yourself. You should always, always, and I'm not saying obsessively, think about how can I change myself? How can I grow myself? How can I do XYZ? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying as the time goes along and you look back and you go, that logo or, those clothes, whatever it is, I no longer identify with that. It doesn't resonate with me. So let's change it. Let's, and it could be something small or it could be something big. Again, excuse me, what's small to me might be big to you, right? So, anyways, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So you can redesign your identity anytime. Reaffirm you don't need permission to evolve. That's exactly what I was just talking about. And I should have read that because then it would have triggered my brain to say, oh yeah, duh, approval. You don't need the approval of others. You don't ask permission to grow, right? No, you just do it. And a lot of times you might grow to the certain degree of your brain doesn't actually know that you're growing. But like I said, when you look back at things and stuff like that, or, maybe you wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and you notice, I no longer like that, or that doesn't resonate with me. That means you're evolving, you're growing. That's a good thing. It can be uncomfortable. I get it. It's just like with change, right? It can be uncomfortable. It can feel weird sometimes, stuff like that. So, kind of also invite your audience, obviously your branding, to explore their own brand alignment. So that's kind of the reason why I was doing and talking about this topic, is to kind of challenge you, the listener or the viewer, to look at your own branding. Does it resonate with you? Can you evolve it? Can you, change it? Is there anything that you would want to change about it? Stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically everything. So I hope that, you kind of received some information, maybe some topics to think about, and some takeaways here. Ever since I started basically designing in this new way of thinking, basically, it has just been right, so, and it's actually been a breath of fresh air. So, and it's felt light and everything. So it like I said, it just feels right, which has been awesome. So, yeah, like I said, I challenge you all to, look at your own designs, look at your own branding, logos, whatever you do, photography, even. And, because this could even apply to photography, the style that you do. We all like to do trendy photography styles or angles, or I think the big thing these days is going back to film. A lot of people are going back to analog things instead of, so much the digital side of things. So, which I think is interesting. But, anyways, that's a different topic for a different time. I, again, hope that you were able to get something out of this episode. I think it was interesting to talk about and to bring up and to kind of think about things from a different perspective. That's really all that I'm trying to do here. So if this resonated with you, or if you found it helpful or insightful, please share it. Maybe share it to someone that needs to hear these things, or maybe they're going through a rebrand, or, maybe they've been thinking about it or something like that. But yeah, I hope you all have a great week. It is almost 5:50, so I am about to go ahead and well, obviously get out of here and end this and continue my morning. So yeah, I hope you all have a great week, and I will see / talk to everyone in the next episode. Bye.